Hey guys, welcome back, and in this session we'll be looking at the Black and Scholes formula. Just to do a little bit of recap, let's look at what we saw in the previous sessions. We basically covered what is Black and Scholes and how it was developed, and we have also seen what is delta hedging, what is the correlation between the options price and the asset price, how and what is the positive delta and what is the negative delta. Then we moved on to the assumptions of the Black and Scholes, and we saw no dividend paying stocks, price movements are random and stuff like that, and no transaction costs and stuff like that. So let's focus upon the elephant in the room, which is the Black and Scholes formula. Now if you see here, it seems very intimidating and daunting at first, but then if you really look at it, it's a very simple thing. So let me just take you through the formula now, and then we will look at certain different aspects of why the formula should be used. We will also look at a few stochastic processes. Now the stochastic processes are basically the random processes. We don't have to really worry about them much, but then at the same point they are important because they will help us understand how the formula itself works. So a few things which we'll cover here is what is a stochastic process, what are Markov process, and what is a log normal distribution. Now if you have never studied about normal distributions, I recommend you go back and just do a little bit of recap or study about normal distribution, what are normal distributions and why do we use them, where do we use them, how do we use them, so that you get a sense of understanding of what is a normal distribution, and then we can come back and look at this particular video. You can pause for now and go back and read about this, and then come back and later resume the video. But then if you're comfortable with this, with what is normal distribution, then yes, we can continue here. So let's look at what else we have in this particular session. So we have the implied limitations of the Black and Scholes. We have already gone through the Black and Scholes assumptions, and some of the assumptions in itself creates the limitation of the Black and Scholes. So we can see that these are some of the limitations which are implied. This is what we cover in this particular session, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this session into two parts, so that we can in the first part we just look at how the formula is derived. In the second part I'm going to run you through the formula calculation and where to get all of these details, so that you can plug in these values and get the formula running. All right, so without further ado, let's look at what is the formula for the call option and the put option. So if you see here, the call option, as we all know that if you think this stock price is going to go up, what we will do is we will buy the call option, so anticipating that the stock price will later on go up. When you try to calculate the value of the call option, what happens is you need to plug in the current stock price and the strike price. You should also have the interest rate, the risk-free interest rate for 3 months, and time to maturity, and all of those details. So these are the only details which are mentioned here. So if you look here, there is S0, which we call it as stock price or the current stock price, and then let's forget about the distributions for now, which is ND1 and ND2, and let's just keep focusing on the formula part. So we have the stock price, we have the strike price, we have the risk-free interest rate for whatever time period you are calculating the option, and we have the time to maturity, right? So that's the T. And in the same way, when we anticipate that the stock price is going to go down, we will buy a put option, so that we get the advantage of the downfall of the stock price. So in that case as well, what we do is we typically deduct the current stock price with the strike price. So let's look at the next part, which is the stochastic processes. When you talk about the stochastic processes, stochastic processes are nothing but any variable whose values basically changes over time in an uncertain way, right? So in an uncertain way, if the value of variable changes, it is said to have followed the stochastic process. So remember, what happens is the previous fluctuations or the previous movements of the stock price are independent of the current price, right? So that is what the basic premise of stochastic process is. So it's a random process. It doesn't follow the previously what happened, previous path or previous stock price movements. That's the reason why we call it as a stochastic process. So it is assumed to move in an uncertain way over time, right? It can be classified in two ways, which is discrete or continuous time. stochastic processes. So discrete is where the value of the variable changes at a specified time, and the continuous stochastic processes are those when the change can place any time. The stochastic processes can also be defined as continuous variable or discrete variable. So just to reiterate, in a continuous variable process, the underlying variable can take any value within a certain range. In the same way, discrete variable process, only certain discrete variable values are possible. So that is the basic difference between the discrete and the continuous variables, stochastic processes. Now, in real world, stock prices do not follow either the continuous variable nor the continuous time process, because market itself works 5 days a week, and as a result, the continuous stochastic processes variable change may not be possible. So that is all about stochastic process. Stochastic process is nothing but a random process, is independent of the movements which has happened in the past. It only takes into account the variables which you fed to the system on a current basis. That is what the stochastic process is. Now, also related with the stochastic process is a Markov process. What is a Markov process? It is a particular type of stochastic process where only the current value of variable is relevant for predicting the future. Specifically, the past history of the variable and the way it has emerged to the present from the past is irrelevant in the Markov process. As a result, the stock prices are assumed to follow a Markov process. That is, the only relevant piece of information is that the price is now, for example, $100. If we consider a stock trading at $100, predictions should be expressed in terms of probability distribution in a way that the Markov property of a stock price is consistent with sort of like weak form of market efficiency. That is, the Markov property implies that the probability distribution of the price at any particular future is not dependent on the past performance. It is not dependent on the past performance or a path followed by the stock in the previous sessions or in the past. The third point which I wanted to emphasize upon is log normal distribution. Now, what is a log normal distribution? It is just the probability distribution of a random variable whose logarithm follows a normal distribution. This model phenomena whose relative growth rate is independent of the size, right? So why do we take log values is because we want to compare two different things which vary in size, but they have sort of like the same movement or the same change, right? So that's why we convert those in log and try to understand or try to compare them. Also, let's understand that log is nothing but an inverse of an exponential function. Now let's move further and look at the last leg of this particular presentation, which is the implied limitations of the Black and Scholes model. One of the things which we have previously talked about in the assumptions is the trading cost and the fees doesn't account in the Black and Scholes model. It certainly doesn't happen in the real world, right? So for example, if you want to buy a call option, you have to pay the brokerage fees for getting into the position. Out of the total profit which you make, you have to basically less the trading costs and fees to get to the overall profit you made on the trade. And it also assumes the risk-free rate of return to be constant throughout the period, which is basically absurd, right? The risk-free rate of return cannot be constant, it keeps on changing. And then it doesn't account for wild swings. Wild swings is basically if there's a black swan event, if the stock price is moved so widely, as soon as you see the markets crashing by 1,000 points or 500 points, you just get out of the position. Also the taxes which you pay, which is again which comes later on. Yeah, so these are the kind of things which you have to basically take care of as well, and these are basically the implied limitations. So I hope you have enjoyed the video, guys, and thanks for watching.